welcome back to my studio. This is Emma, and a very warm welcome to you if it's your very first time here watching my videos. This is my beautiful studio, my happy place. My name is Emma and I live and work in Cumbria, which is the most beautiful Lake District area in the UK, in England. I don't know what I'm allowed to say these days about where we actually all live, as the world is changing. The world is changing really fast around us, but here in this place I feel this is my little sanctuary. This is my place of peace and creativity, and you are all most welcome to join me here each week, and we'll just see what I'm up to. This is basically what it is. I'm not here to do you a full-on like workshop or a tutorial as such. I just simply share with you what I'm doing, and that seems to work quite nicely. That means it's nice and relaxed. I'm not thinking, oh my goodness, I've got to do this, that or the other. I just come in and go, oh yes, now what was I doing? Oh yes, now where's the camera? Let's set it up. How can I do this? How can I make this look nice for you or interesting? And it makes me very creative. I absolutely love making the videos and the films to show you, and I love that you all give me lovely comments back. I get questions and interesting things come up and we have a little conversation, and that's just brilliant. I'm always happy to help if you've got a query, you know, about a machine or a technique or something. If anybody is very new, I've just put up a new playlist. I've actually created a proper playlist this time for beginners free machine embroidery. So if you just go to For Beginners on the playlist, if you're new to doing that, that'll perhaps get you started. I try and keep things simple, to be honest. I try and keep all of it very simple because I'm a simple kind of girl. I don't like things that are complicated and make my head spin. I just want to feel good and enjoy what I do. And the emphasis here is very much on playing. So today is a brand new day. It's a brand new season. It's October now. Autumn is definitely here. And I don't know about you, but I've been going along the hedgerows. I'm very lucky. I live in a countryside place, so I can go along the hedgerows and see what's happening. I can see all the leaves and the seed heads and the fruits that are coming and the colours changing each day. Obviously you may not have that, you may live in a town or a city, but I'm sure there's always somewhere where Mother Nature just pops her head up, you know, if it's your garden or somebody else's garden or a park or even along the street. It's amazing, I think, what grows in between buildings or on buildings and walls that you can see and maybe incorporate into your creativity. So I'm moving on to a sketchbook project this time because I just feel as though it's time just to take a step aside from the fabrics for now and just play around in a sketchbook. And I thought I'd just show you this one briefly. This is years ago. I used to do, I did a degree course actually, in art, and it was my greatest ambition. I did it when I was 30 something, anyway, late on, and I had no idea. I hadn't done A-level art, I hadn't done O-level art, I had no idea, but I absolutely loved it because I was amongst creative kindred spirits, and that's what it's all about. But we were told to draw, we were told to create these things called sketchbooks, and I hadn't got a clue, not a clue. So I used to make these things which, I called them a sketchbook, but basically they're like something out of a school project book, really. They're not very sophisticated, they're not meant to be sophisticated, but I just kind of stuck pictures in, stuck samples in, and wrote some stuff, created some samples, did some beautiful embroidery. My work is very good. I'm happy to blow my own trumpet on that one. So samples, these were sort of from an Elizabethan corset that I was making, but I really hadn't got a clue, and people kept saying, you must draw, and I was going, well, but what am I supposed to draw? Please tell me, give me a recipe for this thing you call a sketchbook. Tell me what to do and I'll do it. And honestly, it's taken me years and years to find out what it is I want to do. So now what I do is I draw for my absolute own pleasure, and I'm going to show you some of my sketchbooks in a minute. I call them a sketchbook just because that's a word that we use, and that we know that's a word that we use. It could be a journal, it could be just scraps of paper, it could be anything you want to create, to put thoughts down into, or pictures, or anything you want to put together. And it's, for me, it's a place of inspiration to come back to, but it's also just for the sheer pleasure of putting together a collection of ideas about something that I'm interested in. And somebody had a very good question about, what subject should you choose, and could you give me some ideas on that? And I thought, well, actually, it's got to come from you. It's got to be what interests you. What does your eye see that attracts it? You know, for some people that will be buildings. They want to do, you know, shapes and squares and buildings and streets. And for some people it'll be organic shapes. It might be things from the bottom of the sea, you know, the seaweeds and the, I don't know, the shellfish and things that live down there. Could be something you just see in the street. I was once totally inspired walking along a street in Edinburgh, looking at all the plaques on the walls, talking about who used to live there, who used to work there, and looking at the old doorbells and the old door knockers and things. Whatever catches your eye and pleases it and makes you feel inspired, that's the thing to do. You know, photograph it, find pictures of it in magazines, doodle, draw, make marks. You don't have to draw and make it look exactly like it is. It's responding to something. I think a sketchbook is about your response to something. And I just think it's a fun thing to do. So I hope you'll join me. I'm going to show you a few sketchbooks now, and you know, we'll just see where it takes us. As I always say, I don't know what's going to happen next, but I'm going to get paints and papers out. But first of all, I'm going to show you some different kinds of sketchbooks that I've got in my I keep them sort of stashed on here. So please join me. So really, I could show you so many of my sketchbooks. I would probably just fry your brain, because I don't realise how many I've done over the last few years and how things have changed, how I do things very differently now to how I used to do them. You wouldn't be surprised by that, would you? So, but I just thought I'll just show you a few ideas, because the word sketchbook is a very loaded one. I think for a lot of people it comes with a lot of fear, a lot of worry and a lot of concern, and that used to be me. I used to be the one who didn't know what to do with a sketchbook. I didn't know what it was for unless it was for drawing. And I used to look, I've probably told you this story before, I used to look at people's work at college and go, oh, I wish mine looked like that. So I'm just going to give you a little synopsis, if you like, of what the sort of sketchbooks, there's a handful of my sketchbooks I've got going on. Don't forget, I do this all the time. This is my life, and I've always done drawing. So my drawing is, I think it's good, but I've had to learn to think it's good. I've always looked at other people's and thought, I wish I did it like them. And now actually I'm getting more and more comfortable with what I do. So this is a little everyday sketchbook. I've kept this one up in the kitchen for a while, the last few years. So literally it's just drawings. It's my little funny sketches that I do. Whatever's in the kitchen, I just draw it. So, and some of the times I do it with my left hand, because if you draw with your non-dominant hand, you get really different lines and different shapes. But that's a whole other thing. A whole thing on drawing could be a thing. And when you use pencils and things that you can add water to, you get really nice soft effects. So this is just a little drawing sketchbook that I've played around with, okay? So that's something you can be thinking about, is having something that you just have to hand and always pop a little thing in. Even if you're just writing things in it, even if you're sticking things in it that, you know, are part of your daily life. It doesn't have to be this big thing, a sketchbook, just a project book, a journal, whatever you want to call it. Soften it down, a keepsake book, somewhere where you write down things from your day and that you want to kind of tune into when you want to get making. It's awfully helpful, I think, to have things like this. It's an inspiration. It's like having a vocabulary, or it's like having I don't know, just a reference section for your life that you can just look at when you're a bit stuck. So this is a teeny tiny one. This is a Pink Pig sketchbook, which I use quite a lot. And I just loved all these. I had all these magazines, old magazines. And I thought, all these lovely pictures in these magazines, I always go through them before I throw them out. And I used to be a real magazine-aholic. I had hundreds of them, and I don't anymore. But what I've done is I've taken the pictures out and I've stuck them in this little book. I've even done a bit of stitching on it. Don't know if you can see that. You can probably feel it. And I was just trying to make a tiny thing, a tiny reference thing, use these lovely pictures, cut little bits out, stitch them in, stick them in, whatever, and then do just some little drawings, some marks from the little pictures. So it's a teeny tiny little reference book. There you go. I've even stitched a little sample and popped it in. I've done a bit of writing and a bit of drawing. So that's in fact, that's quite good. That's kind of the theme I'm kind of working towards. So maybe I'll keep that out. So that's a tiny one. So it doesn't have to be massive. I don't have big sketchbooks because I don't like them. I find them very intimidating and I don't know how to film them. So I use teeny little ones. any little scraps of paper that I have lying around, anything that I've printed anything onto, like when I've got this newspaper under here, when I do printing, as you will see, and if you've watched some of my videos for a while, you'll know, once you get printing onto the newspaper, this gives you a really nice resource for sticking into your book. So little pictures that I've drawn, stitched, printed, and then I've just popped them in this little book. So this is a work in progress. It's almost like, you know, those little bits of things that you can't bear to throw away. Well, what you do is you put them in a sketchbook and they suddenly have a purpose. They suddenly have a use. So you can see I haven't done very much in that one. What's this one? This one's a hardback one, okay, which I do use and have used. I use them, to be honest, as I said with my first one, I use them mainly for doing actual proper, what I call proper drawing, sketching, trying to draw the things that are in front of me. So this was a little holiday one, and just, you know, sitting on the boat, going out to the islands, doing a bit of sketching, just messing about. Writing things in, you know, a little diary, little treasures from the seashores on South Uist, from the silvery sands and turquoise green and indigo seas, strands of fishing ropes tangling, some with seaweeds growing on them, shells white on the sand, textures and shapes. You know, it's that kind of thing. Just whatever floats your boat, whatever makes you feel happy and joyful. You know, playing around with different colours maybe. Writing, and as I say, these wonderful crayons you get that you just put water over the top of them, instantly everything is softened down and you look like a brilliant artist because the water does magical things. So that's a little one that's a work in progress. This one again is just, as I say, bits of newspaper, bits of brown paper where I've printed something out or painted something, and these are just waiting. These are pages in waiting, like ladies in waiting. They're pages in waiting for me to come back to. But in the meantime, and in fact, I think this was a diary. This was a little book that I'd written a diary. It's actually got something from November 2011. I've written stuff in it. And then I've just decided I didn't want to throw the book away. And so I've just stuck bits in on top of it. So it's quite funny. You can see a bit of the past coming through, which is rather nice as an idea. So I'll show you these two next. These are small ones. I use, as I say, a lot of Pink Pig, but any spiral bound ones I find really useful because I can take the pages out. And those of you who've watched me for a while know that this is one of my favourite things to do in all the world. Because they've got holes here, you can just go with a nice sharp pair of scissors. You go snip, 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 snip in between these wires, and lo and behold, you can pull the page out. So that page could have something really amazing on, and you don't want to have it there, but you want to put it, you know, somewhere else in your book. So you can just pop it in there, like that. And this is the one that I showed you, if you saw my video over the last few weeks, of the slow landscape. This was my little holiday sketchbook. Again, little bits of paper that I've just had printed bits on. This was a quick little sketch of something and I've just literally torn it, stuck it down. One of my favourite things is newspaper because it gives you print. And then you can stitch and you can glue and you can add fabric and texture and stuff like that. So this is, I've put an inside on it so that it, you know, it all follows through. I think the back has got, yeah, again, little scraps, little bits of print. If I can show you that, little bits of print, little bits of stitch. It's so much fun, honestly, and it's a joy to do. It becomes something in its own right, and it may or may not help you going forward in time to produce something specific from, you know, you produce a sample like this maybe with a little bit of scrappy embellished stuff. I've put a little bit of tissue paper that I've stitched into, I've layered it up with different things. It's playing with what you've got lying around, and then that might inspire you, or it might be something, you know, directly, or it might be just something that gives you the joy in the moment of cutting and sticking and playing. And when you come back to look at it, you just go, oh yes, and it'll perhaps take you somewhere that'll inspire you to make new things. So it's an indirect or direct thing. It depends what you make of it. Okay, so as I say, this is like the filled in version of this one. So this one's waiting. And I was just going to say, I had a lovely comment about sketchbooks this week. after I showed this one, and somebody talked about putting photographs in. Now these, I did have about 2 or 3 photographs in this one. They're actually printed onto cloth, and this is something you can do. This was special paper cloth, what am I saying? Crafty computer paper or something, and it comes as a cloth, and you put it through your printer because it has a stiff back on it, and you can actually print photographs onto it. Obviously you don't have to do that. You can just print onto paper and stick them in. You don't have to stitch everything in. You don't have to be as insane as I am, because I just love sketchbooks that have all these bits hanging out. I think the messier the better for me. So I think the other one with a photograph in that's actually my photograph is this one, and I've just put it next to this because I feel as though that works quite nicely. But again, you know, I can be taking this out and I can put it somewhere else in the book. If I don't like where it is, I can move it around. So that's that one. When you watched, if you watched my work in January, I did a whole sketchbook series, and this is actually the front. You might remember some of this that I did. If you were with me on this one, you might remember some of this cutting and sticking. And I actually got round to putting a front on it. So again, I cut little bits of paper, I think tearing, you can't beat a bit of torn edge. And because I made a whole, like a cover, and then I stick it on, it means I can stitch into it if I want to as I go. And it's wonderful. It's only the marks that I've made. I mean, you can see that that is simply newspaper. I mean, you can read it if you want to. But I just love it. It's when you put it all together. So the back looks like that. A little bit of a magazine picture, and then just lots of scraps that I've stuck on. A little bit of lace, a little bit of print, a little bit of stitch. Anything that's textured. So that was it was called A Winter's Tale, and I absolutely loved doing it. It was very wintry. So there's that one. The last one, I'm just going to show you this one, because this is one that has been seen before. Last year when we did an exhibition with Fabricate, and we, I think it was all about the sea. So I made a sketchbook up, and it was called, my project was called Sea Change. There you go. So again, magazine picture that I like, a little bit of card that I've stuck on, that I've printed and painted, scraps basically, a bit like using your scraps with your embellishing machine if you have one. It's the same thing, but you're using bits of paper. So this was, I think this bit of stitching on the front of here was done by somebody on one of my workshops. I don't know if you can see that really close up, but it was just like, it was a big mistake. It was like some bad stitching, if you like, but I painted it, and it became this gorgeous piece of textured, you know, something. You can call it art, you can call it what you like. I don't care. I just call it creativity, just having fun and being creative with whatever you've got around you. And it doesn't have to cost a lot. You know, the packaging that you get from the postman or postwoman can bring you an awful lot of joy, really. So this one is one, as I say, this was my Sea Change one, and it was all about my life and ideas and how the sea was feeding into it. And I'm not going to show you all because I will fry your brain a bit, but it was basically, I had a dress that I created. So this was my drawings for the dress there. But I wanted to show you, because I've added some bits into this. It's got a lot of samples that I've put in. So every time I make a sample, put it in your sketchbook, because it just adds something to it. This page has got some tissue paper stuck on it, and then the sample put on it. But I've started doing some drawings. I'll just take this out a moment, I'll show you. Again, things from magazines. If you haven't got your own photographs and you're not somewhere exotic, just look through a magazine and I'm sure you'll find something that attracts your eye. And then I've done some drawings. Now you don't have to do drawings from these, but you could be looking at the shapes and the patterns and the colours and the textures of these photographs. I've done it because I love drawing, and I wanted to capture the shapes. And drawing is a way of, especially if you're drawing a landscape that you're in, it's a way of taking you into that landscape. It makes you look very closely when you draw, because you're looking to see where the shapes are and what lines up with what. And it doesn't have to look exactly like that. It could just be you love the circles, so you take those as an idea and you start working with circles. There's all these lovely circles here. So it doesn't have to be what you think other people think it should be. This is your creativity, your creative space, and your time for you just to play and have some fun. So again, a little tiny sketch, a little bit of words written down. I find writing words is very evocative. It can take you into a sort of a feeling about what your subject matter is. And that's a little sample that I've done. Lots more sketches. Again, these sketches, I've literally this morning just put them into this book. They were all in a plain book like this. They were in a plain sketchbook like this. And I just decided they needed zhuzhing up a bit. So I've actually put them into here with some of my samples, and it's made this book a lot more exciting, something I'm going to come back to again and again, I think, in the future. And again, words from the magazines, and write down, how you respond to what you see, how you feel, if you can bear to do that, or you just write down stone, seaweed, pebble. Isn't the word pebble? Isn't the word pebble a lovely word? So I think that's probably enough of my sketchbooks, because as I say, I will fry your brain. That's just to give you an idea of what's possible, and it's always down to what your creativity brings up in you. Next thing I'd be doing with this is taking out some pages, getting my paints out, and just starting to play.
Ba ba da ba da ba da ba ba.